everyone. Welcome back. Two Spot Monkeys live. Didn't take us 6 years this time, Tom, just a week.
There you go. Was it even 6 days? Maybe so.
Maybe. I want to say it might have been Wednesday last week we recorded again.
Yeah, all good.
Is it Wednesday? I don't even know. What day of the week is it?
No, it's Wednesday. Yep, so it's been a week.
That's the way life is right now. I don't know what day of the week it is. Half the time I wake up. Do I have a call this morning? Probably. Well, welcome back, everybody. We hope you enjoyed our Money in the Bank preview last week. Thank you for watching that or listening to it or whatever you did. And thanks for coming back for more. It means we didn't scare you off with that. Hopefully you enjoyed the Money in the Bank show as well on Sunday night, or maybe you didn't. I'd seen there are a lot of opinions around that and around that match especially. So today, what we're going to do, though, is we're going to do kind of a potpourri show. It's just kind of all over the place. We're going to talk Money in the Bank. We're going to talk some NXT. We're going to talk some AEW, and then maybe foreshadow what is to come next week when we come back, because we're still planning on doing this at least for a few more weeks until life returns. Well, I don't think life's going to return to normal in a few weeks. But Tom, you doing well today?
Yeah, everything's good. Thankfully, got called back to work here in Michigan last week. I'm not an essential worker, so just again, praise for all those who are essential, that are on the front lines, that are working. Doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, but special thoughts to those people. But also grateful to be back. And again, to your comment about what day is it, that I lived that life for probably about 6 weeks, where every day kind of felt like Groundhog Day. So being back to work is a good sense of purpose, but I'm also grateful for the time to break away and be with you and talk wrestling and. Again, just this nice disconnect from our current reality and have some fun while we're at it. So,
yeah, that's the plan. And we hope that's what it is for everybody else, too. A chance to have some fun. We went 90 minutes. We went more than Broadway. We're testing the limit. I think we were in Aries Danielson territory there, maybe even more than that. So probably not that long of a show today, just looking at our topics. But you never know. You get Tom and I talking about wrestling, and hey, things happen. Well, let's start off, Tom. Money in the Bank review. We've both seen the show now, and we're going to save, just so that everybody knows, we're going to save some of the raw happenings around Money in the Bank for next week. Tom's catching up, and so we want to make sure we talk about that in a way that does not spoil everything, even though a few things I know have been spoiled for you already, Tom. But kudos to you for avoiding some spoilers. It's hard to do anymore, it feels like.
Well, just this show in general, like, again, it happened on Mother's Day. You know, my family and I poured big time into my wife. We did a social distancing flower drop off for my mom. So this wasn't on my Mother's Day agenda at all. So the fact that I insulated myself from social media, which is hard to do, kind of in a way, depending on who you follow or what you follow, that nothing with this show was spoiled for me. So as I dove into it last night and watched everything but the last two matches and finished the last two matches today, it was nice to kind of have because if you read or if you hear something, you create a bias, good, bad, or otherwise. So there was no bias about this, other than there was one comment I did see on Facebook: worst pay-per-view ever, which I didn't agree with. So anyway, we'll get into it, obviously.
And I agree. I watched part of it on Sunday and then finished up the rest on Monday. And I avoided social media as well, which is I have to, on my phone, create a folder and put my Facebook and Twitter links into that folder, because it's just so much of my being to hit Facebook or hit Twitter. So I have to do that to kind of stop myself from doing that and inadvertently, because otherwise, just, because of many of my friends being wrestling fans and that sort of thing, it feels like the top story that shows up on Facebook ruins something really cool. So I actually went into that even on Monday not knowing who won Money in the Bank, or I think like you, I hadn't seen the title match either, the WWE title match. So I agree. It's more fun when you don't know those things. As much as I read a lot of the PW Insider and all of those, part of the fun actually of watching Raw and SmackDown lately has been that spoilers aren't getting out because so few people are in the know, and it actually has made it more interesting. I don't know if it's always more enjoyable, but that's got more to do with booking than anything else. But so let's talk Money in the Bank. What kind of hits you first and foremost, Tom? What is your big takeaway or your most moment that sticks to you?
Yeah, so I mean, Otis, Otis wins Money in the Bank on a fluke, but also like a very well played and well timed fluke. I don't remember. I didn't watch back our show and I didn't take notes when we talked, but I think we talked maybe in reverse order. He was at the bottom of the list, I think, for both of us. So the fact that that happened, kind of, if you know, in my mind, I just didn't foresee it. And immediately when it happened, I just smiled because I think there's so many fun things that they have the ability to do with him while he has that briefcase, and the Mandy Rose relationship and all the other stuff. So that, I think, was like the big thing for me coming out of that show. That I just was like, okay, unexpected. I'm not going to hate on it. So yeah, that's that.
Yeah, and you're right. Otis was absolutely the bottom of our lists on both of us. I have read places that Vince really likes this Otis storyline and even has his hands in it a lot, which doesn't totally surprise me. If you kind of watch the way it's played out, it's got some Vince mannerisms in it. Yeah, Otis winning, I didn't see coming, and I agree with you. I think they can do a lot of fun with it. This is one. Sometimes I like a quick cash in or on Money in the Bank, or that sort of thing. This is one where I hope to drag it out a little bit. And you're not going to see Otis be afraid of Braun Strowman, certainly, because Otis isn't afraid of anything because that's just kind of his character. But yeah, I agree. Otis. And so, Tom, what did you think about the Money in the Bank matches themselves? Let's just start with the elephant in the room, I guess, on that.
Yeah. Not nearly as enjoyable, in my opinion, as the Boneyard match or Firefly Funhouse. Obviously, a different style of kind of cinematic, theatrical, edited, whatever WWE wants to call it, presentation to that. There were things I thought were fun that I liked, and there were things that didn't logically add up. Like, for example, I don't remember Shayna Baszler being taken out. And if I missed it, I missed it, but I don't think that happened. Same thing with Daniel Bryan. I feel like neither of those two people not being there in the end made me go, darn, I wish that gap was filled in. And if I missed it, I can totally understand that I might have missed it. So that part, as the wrestling kind of purist ish that I am, would be the part that sticks in my craw. I thought the sprinkle ins of the people were kind of fun. I don't know who Doink the Clown was behind the chair, and he had like a collared shirt on,
right.
So it was kind of weird. Yeah. Other than that, again, I love that they went right to the elevator. We kind of had talked about that last week, and right out of the bat, Asuka had gone to the elevator. So, and obviously the men, I think, started on a higher level. So when they finally got around to getting through that first level, if you will, I don't know what. Tell me your thoughts. I'm interested to hear how you perceived it.
Yeah, I guess I liked it a little bit more than you. The Boneyard match for me was I think we talked about this a little last week. I didn't love the Boneyard match, and I don't know why. The Firefly Funhouse match I thought was great. Maybe I like those little nostalgia throwback Easter eggs or whatever you want to call them. And I agree with you. The cameos I thought were fun. I was just kind of searching here quick to see if anybody had reported who Doink the Clown was, because I agree. It was nice they got him in the face paint and wig, but you couldn't put the jacket on him or anything. He had nothing else for him. It was like somebody, came to work cosplaying as Doink that day. Brother Love was funny. The Stephanie McMahon thing, the thing I hated with that, Dana Brooke looked like the biggest idiot in the world in that moment. Like, just before they went into that conference room, she said to Shayna, "Tell me where that briefcase is." And I thought, for a month, they've been saying it's on the roof of the frickin' building, Dana. Like, why would they have her say that? And then have her go into the conference room and take the Money in the Bank briefcase, which isn't the one they've been showing. It's not on the roof of the building. Like, I don't know. Dana Brooke hasn't been obviously shown to be a threat in any real way, but she also hasn't been played up to be an idiot. some people, and I don't mean to, there's a PC comment maybe to say, I could have seen them doing it with Eugene back in the day. I could have even seen them with Otis a little bit, because he has kind of been played up a little bit to be, not brilliant by any means. I did kind of love that they started in the weight room. You were kind of looking forward to when Otis was going to get in the weight room, and they just started the guys right there. The AJ Styles thing with the weight. I mean, the weight wasn't even all the way on his chest. He could have slid right out from under that. It was pretty obvious. So there were some kind of weak things. The Shayna thing, I was talking with our friend John S. Earlier in the week, and Nia threw her against a door in a hallway, and that was the last time we saw her. So, kinda, but nothing devastating that should have been nothing like Baron Corbin throwing people off the roof of the building.
Well, I mean, Carmella got put through a table in the catering space, right? So that makes sense, right? That's a logical reason. Getting tossed against a wall,
right? Which happened about 18 other times during the match. Yeah, I agree. I guess in some ways I thought maybe they were trying to protect Shayna since she wasn't going to win it, obviously. And not by not having her there at the end, laid out in the ring or something. I don't think it worked necessarily. Trying to think, and you haven't seen Raw yet. I don't think Shayna. I don't think there was much follow up, so maybe we think she's dead like everybody else. Although Ray came back, so
and that's the whole other part. I'm sorry to jump in, but just the lack of commentary too, and the background music was a little weird. If they would have given us more periodic commentary, especially when Ray and Alistair got tossed over, because obviously that wasn't the building. When you look at it from the helicopter view, clearly they didn't articulate the depth. But that's where an announcer would have been like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe King Corbin did that." But don't worry, they're not dead. It isn't the side of the building. I mean, right? Imagine you're 8 years old, you just think that Aleister Black and Ray Jr. are falling 5 stories to their death.
Right, and only the Giant has ever come back from that back in the WCW days. So, yes. I agree, and. The commentary, the lack of commentary, the music was super cheesy and not helpful. To go back to the Boneyard match, that music made sense for that match, even though maybe the match didn't click for me. The music behind it made sense. I agree. The music here was terrible. And the commentary at the end where Cole just says something quickly about, Asuka and Otis, you're Mr. and Mrs. Money in the Bank for 2020. Have a great night. To me, actually really sounded like commentary off of the WWE video game. That was it was just this generic line that sounded completely recorded. It was almost as bad as a line that gets delivered on Raw, and I won't spoil that for you. You'll know what it is when you hear it, Tom. We'll talk about it next week. But there's a line that comes. Money in the Bank, though, the matches were what they were. I think we all knew they were going to be cheesy. The cameos, I thought, added fun. Asuka, I thought, was a great choice for the winner. I think you and I both had her kind of as number 2 behind Shayna. We both thought Shayna was going to win. Asuka or Nia seemed 2 and 3 for sure. I love Asuka. They have done a not great job with Asuka since she came up from NXT. I think we talked about last week, I think she's been the star of Raw since they went to this empty arena stuff with her crazy promos and just yelling. So that works for me. I'm glad to see her get featured. So, and Otis, let's see. I'm actually looking forward to SmackDown because I want to see what they're going to do with Otis.
Yeah, for sure.
The other matches, there's not a lot to say about them. I thought Drew and Seth had the match we thought they would. I thought it was a good, seemed like there was stakes in that match. They both wanted to win. I thought the handshake at the end was interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see how they follow that up on Raw for both men, because, I mean, I totally see Drew McIntyre's character being like, hey, he wants to be the best, but you know what? When someone gives him a run for his money, he's going to acknowledge that. And I think that's kind of what I felt like with Rollins at the end there. And the fact that Rollins did it and there was no shenanigans additionally. Again, it leaves you just going, okay, well, now what?
Yeah, I fully expected. I didn't expect the handshake, and then once it happened, as Drew was leaving the ring, I thought, oh, he's going to kick the rope or something. And It didn't. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they play that going forward. The Strowman Wyatt match was fine. I thought the tease of a reunion was okay, but Strowman wasn't going back to Bray Wyatt, and they shouldn't do that, and they shouldn't reform a Wyatt family. The Fiend is way over and doesn't need a horde of people with him, I don't think. Seems like they're moving towards Strowman and the Fiend though down the road here.
Well, yeah. So Bray's comments were like, I told him that this would happen, or I told him that you'd come around, or whatever he said specifically. Yeah. And then now Bray's going to have to face the Fiend, or however that relationship works, and atone for what he did on Sunday. So that'll be fun to watch play out. And again, I would imagine the psychological games or the viciousness of maybe what Braun is in for will be cool to see.
Right. No, I agree. And anything from the other couple of matches, the tag title match or the women's title?
I don't think so. Yeah, tag title match I think was pretty solid in the ring. Going back just to do a reversal just to bring SmackDown into it. I thought like what they did on the 8-man tag on SmackDown that led to this, like combination of all of that, like showed that these guys were all really, really working well together. And then Lucha House Party, Juventud Guerrera taking the pinfall. Obviously allows rematches for the New Day against Miz and Morrison and both Forgotten Sons, which we had both, I believe, said that we could see the Forgotten Sons still being programmed with New Day coming out of this. So that makes a lot of sense. And the fact that they announced Backlash for June 14th as the June offering for pay-per-view is exciting to see what will be developed and come together for that. The only other part that I want to make a quick comment on is just MVP having Lashley come in for him, like directly, indirectly. Like it looked like, again, MVP had Shane Thorne and Brendan Vink a week ago on Raw. Now maybe a Bobby Lashley connection. Again, they may or may not do anything with it, but MVP having a stable could be interesting. But we also, I think, maybe said it on last week's chat too. He's kind of like a pseudo GM without being named the GM. So,
yeah, his role is very interesting right now. It's this weird GM mentor. I can make matches for some people, but I don't get involved in others. Yeah, I'm not sure where they're headed with it. If he has a stable, I like that. Again, you and I talked last week. We both love stables. Zelina's got kind of her thing going on with her guys, and if MVP gets a stable going too, maybe Rollins reforms something. He's still got Murphy kind of hanging around, but the stable isn't two, and they're not being programmed as a tag team anyways, even though they were the champs for a little while. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I agree. I'd forgotten about the MVP. When I saw MVP and Truth were signed for the show, I thought, that's weird.
It was originally for the pre-show too, which is interesting. And when I went to go watch the pre-show first, because I was interested in Jeff Hardy versus Cesaro, I just skipped to that match, and like they typically have like the little like jump to cells on the network, and when they didn't have that match, I go, oh well, why wouldn't they do that? So then when I'm watching the Money in the Bank full show, and then R-Truth comes out, I was like, okay, well let's see what happens here.
Yeah, it confused me a little. I thought Hardy's Sheamus might have gotten added to the main show, but they didn't want to go there yet. We also thought that Raw tag title match, which I'll just say it doesn't happen on Raw either, and I'll let you watch it from there. I'll spoil that part for you and leave it alone from there. Talk more about that next week.
It's coming for Backlash, obviously.
It's slow build. Well, let's switch gears from Money in the Bank and talk some NXT. There were a number of developments on NXT last week that are kind of worthy of discussion, and we'll just start right off with the big debut last week. It wasn't necessarily, it was his in-ring debut. It wasn't his debut on the show. They've been doing video teases, it seems like forever, for Karrion Kross, the former Killer Kross of Impact and Lucha Underground and MLW and just about anywhere else I could book him for a while there. fame, and Scarlett Bordeaux, but apparently just going by Scarlett, it sounds like here. Tom, what did you think of? Let's start with the entrance. We can get to the match in a minute. Let's start with the entrance. What did you think of Karrion Kross's entrance?
I like this. I like the music. I like the entrance theme. I like the presentation. Like when that match starts and there's still like smoke in the ring, that was pretty cool. If that's a consistent thing, there's a lot of ways they could go with that. The singing, I don't need that. That can stop yesterday. So I'll stop there and see how it landed with you.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Now the Fallen Prey chant, I don't need Scarlett mouthing along to it, but if that was behind with the theme, to kind of keep going or whatever, and eventually when crowds come back, maybe they'll start chanting Fallen Prey or something. I'm okay with that. Yeah, her lip syncing, it was her own voice. She did say that on Twitter. Somebody had asked, was she lip syncing to someone else or what? It kind of had that, to me, it had a little bit of an Evanescence feel to it. And we all know the Evanescence song that's been played a million times. And that was just kind of the feel I got. Yeah, the lip syncing thing, bad. But I thought the mood they set with the entrance, like you said, and the theme itself, the lighting, all of that, the smoke, made him seem like a threat, which he should be booked that way. And but yeah, cut the thing. And she even did a little bit after the match, I think, too, with the Fallen Prey piece of her, lip syncing to it or whatever. And lip syncing is bad enough. I mean, I guess they could have had her like sing it live, and I don't know if that would have been better or worse. It could have been more cringeworthy, especially if she misses some notes because she's out of breath or something. They tried something new. I think tweaks on it by just dropping the lip sync thing. They don't need a rehaul on this character, but I think he's got a ton of potential. He comes off as a threat, absolutely. So maybe let's jump to the match. It was what I thought it should be. Was it DeJournay, I think, that he faced?
Leon Ruff.
That's right. DeJournay was Cameron Grimes. That's right. Leon Ruff. So Ruff, small guy, thrown around easy. The Saito suplex gave me more Ashima callbacks to the day. And he just killed him. And that choke is crazy looking. I saw somebody posted online, chokes are now legal in wrestling. I'm like, have you watched wrestling in the last 3 years? Maybe 5. The sleeper hold itself was a choke, even though they always used to talk about keeping it on the chin. Cranking someone's chin real hard doesn't hurt. The reason the sleeper works, you're putting them to sleep. But so I kind of laughed when I saw that complaint online, like, just no. But I thought his finisher looked good. The thing I like with that chokehold too, he's going to be able to Saito suplex most people. He probably will even at some point here suplex somebody that you would think he wouldn't. There aren't a lot of those guys of that size. If he Saito suplexes Keith Lee, for instance, that would be super impressive.
Bronson Reed would be a perfect way to, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's whether that's coming here tomorrow, today, it's Wednesday today, or down the road, that would be like a way to get him over even more.
Yeah. Reed's a great idea for that because Lee obviously needs to be built to in a feud down the road. You don't want to jump to that right away. I think Kross looked really, really good. Cut the singing, but I think they've got a star on their hands here if they want to build it right.
Totally. And here's the thing. This is a guy, a talent that I literally have had no exposure to before. Awareness, yes, but in terms of exposure, I've never seen him in Lucha Underground. Never saw him in MLW. Never saw him in Impact. Never saw him in AEW or wherever else he might have gone in the last 2-3 years, whatever. So I'm completely coming in with unabated eyes. Loved what I saw in the ring. Perfect amount of time. Side note, Leon Ruff, that dude's been taking beatings from a lot of people. So I know, like, obviously that the end for him may be because of the evolved WWE relationship. And it may not also, but clearly, kudos to him for getting some exposure and getting his name out there. And whenever indies resume, hopefully Leon Ruff can can come back around and get more money because of NXT, SmackDown, and Raw exposure that he's got. I like the finisher. My concern about the finisher is how he set it up. It seemed like it was like a throw into the catch on the choke, and I just don't know if I could see that happening with other different size talents. It happened pretty seamless with Ruff, but I'll be interested to see if that is the same way it's continued in terms of the setup or the application. I hope there's other ways to see that happen. And then the other thing, and again, disconnecting like the whole like, hey, we're in a new era of wrestling, COVID time, things are a little bit longer in terms of a burn or storytelling. I would have loved to have some connection back to the fact that he was the one that attacked Ciampa a few weeks ago, has been stalking him for a while. Give me just a niblet about that, or I don't know. Like, I mean, they can do a lot of backstage check-ins with other guys. Why not him and why not here?
Yeah, and I don't even think on commentary they mentioned Ciampa's name at least around Cross's debut. Do you remember?
No, I don't believe so.
I don't think so. And I agree with you. Some sort of note to that. I don't need Ciampa coming out and attacking him right away. They can build to that. That's fine. Even, him showing up on the screen, live via FaceTime or whatever. I mean, some sort of note to that. Maybe they'll pick up on that this week. Maybe they just wanted to get him, fully exposure in the ring. I agree. I forgot about that setup to the choke. He's going to have to find other ways to get to that with larger opponents. But over time, we might see that, where he can, it could become, if it becomes one of those things where he can kind of catch it out of anywhere, not really an RKO out of anywhere, but can get you into that choke out of a multitude of different positions. It makes him more dangerous. I thought it looked cool with Ruff, but I agree with you. Yeah. Again, Bronson Reed, Keith Lee, somebody like that, even Ciampa, you're probably not going to be able to throw up in the air and catch in a choke like that.
Yeah.
Or if you do, holy smokes, that's going to be even more impressive than it was with Ruff. So Karrion Kross off to a good start. I agree. Ciampa seems to be the way they're going to go on that. The only thing I worry about with that, I like the fact that they're both kind of devilish characters or maniacal or whatever you want to say. The only thing I worry is, you can't really have Kross lose that feud. Ciampa can probably lose a feud and not be hurt. I think he's a made man in NXT, but it just seems odd to go right there. That seems like a feud that could have been a big time thing for him, and to bring Kross right in there. Now you're bringing him in, right near the top of the card by putting him with Ciampa too. So you're also making him a big deal. It'll just be interesting to see how they book it to make both guys, keep that stature.
I agree.
All right. Also in NXT, we had an NXT title match on Wednesday night. Adam Cole defeats the Velveteen Dream I thought it was a pretty good match. Dream is one of those guys for me. You and I have talked about Jay Lethal this way a lot sometimes. Dream is one of those guys who I see he's scheduled for a match, and I'm like, okay. And then I watch the match, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. I don't know. He's not like, I know there are some people who think Dream should have been called up by now. I think he's fine in NXT. I think he'd get lost in the shuffle on the main roster. So he's there. The question, though, too, becomes where they go now with the NXT title. Morrow certainly made a comment that this isn't the last we've seen of Adam Cole and the Velveteen Dream, and it probably isn't. Dexter Lumis also getting involved. Doesn't seem like he's after the title. Lumis seems like he's kind of playing a vigilante role almost right now, which is interesting for that character when he seems like a creepy stalker. But Tom, your thoughts on the match and just the situation around the NXT title?
Yeah, so I definitely agree that it's not done. The biggest thing for me that seals that deal is that Dream had a visual pinfall on Adam Cole after the Purple Rainmaker, and the ref had been taken out with the Loomis Roderick Strong collision with the ref that was trying to admonish them out of the way. So that's cool. I like the match. I enjoyed the match. There's definitely more in the tank for more with these guys because they've been building it for a while. So if this was just it would leave me less satisfied, but knowing there's more, I think it was perfect for what it was. I'm interested in the Dexter Lumis motivation about targeting Undisputed Era. And is it all of Undisputed Era? Is it Bobby Fish? Is it Roderick Strong? I'd like to know more about what's going on there. Obviously, Dream got involved in the tag match, or I'm sorry, Lumis got involved with the Dream in a tag match with UE a couple weeks ago when Dream pinned Cole to kind of cement the title shot. But even before that, there was a couple spots that you may or may not have seen where like Lumis was like lurking in the background during some UE interactions. So this has been going on for a while. But yeah, again, we don't know why what his motivations are, and he's out there. Like he's like what Waylon Mercy in 93, 94, 95 would be today, but without some added context. So I don't know when or where Kyle O'Reilly fits into this group. I don't know if he's injured or because he's diabetic, which he's talked about, publicly before. If makes him somewhat vulnerable, so he's not competing during this time. Another 6-man tag with Undisputed Era versus Dream, Lumis, and someone else. But again, we don't even know. There's nothing about the connection between Lumis and Dream. So I know I went a couple different ways there. I look forward to a rematch. It makes a lot of sense that there would be a rematch. And obviously there's still legs for Lumis if we want to throw some alliteration out there.
Yeah, no, I agree. And part of what I like that they built this over a while for Dream and Cole, even though, like I said, Dream is a guy that I like, but, isn't top of my list in NXT or elsewhere. But, when they were doing the TakeOver matches, to me, that match seemed like it was probably destined for TakeOver Tampa, but maybe not, because they have held all the other matches for that card with the TakeOver Tampa on the screen and all of that sort of thing, other than obviously Gargano and Ciampa would have been a TakeOver as well. And they didn't put the TakeOver branding on that, but because it was in a different empty arena because we had to move to a different place. That was a little weird, but brutal match, obviously, in and of itself. And maybe they weren't going to do this at TakeOver Tampa. Maybe they were going to slow build it because Ciampa and Gargano certainly could have main evented Tampa with no problem. You wouldn't have needed a title match to be the main event. So I'm not sure which way that was going to go. But I agree. It seems like it's going. I don't know, if it wasn't Dream, if they weren't going to continue this. And I do agree that visual pinfall, I had forgotten about that. Certainly they need to follow that up. I don't know where you'd go outside of that right now with Keith Lee being involved in, obviously, with the North American title. It doesn't feel like there's another babyface contender that's, unless you went to Ciampa or something, but he should be busy with Karrion Kross, kind of waiting in the wings unless they reboot it. So Dream makes the most sense moving forward.
Yeah, and I don't know what the schedule for takeovers would have been. I'm guessing that we would have had Tampa if things had maintained their normalcy. And again, we got fragments of that over the course of a number of weeks on NXT TV. I want to guess August. So I guess my wondering and my concern is, will they kind of give us that soon? My concern is that too long? It's May 13th today. Do we need roughly 3 months of build for the next type of takeover event? Or would WWE be wise to say, okay, hey, here's our slate. We've got Backlash in June. Between Backlash and Extreme Rules, we're going to have a takeover. And then we're going to do Extreme Rules and then SummerSlam. I don't, who knows, right? But I think there's enough out there that we can see matches that could easily, and maybe even it's as early as June, who knows, where another takeover could happen. But I hope instead of doing it on NXT TV, they elect to do it as a network event, much like they've done with like Money in the Bank and will do with Backlash.
Yeah, I agree. I hope they do that too. I don't know. SummerSlam, the news came out this week that Boston basically has said any summer events should look for elsewhere to hold them. So it seems like that's going to have to move and probably to the Performance Center. Maybe by August, there will be places that will be allowing, small groups of folks at events. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I kind of think this summer we're probably going to be doing empty arena shows. So will they do a takeover and a SummerSlam back-to-back empty arena? Maybe. They didn't for Mania, but they split it into 2 shows too. SummerSlam normally would be 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours. If they can cut the length of SummerSlam down so that it can all fit on Sunday without being a 7-hour, empty arena show, then I think that could work. But I'd love to have one more before that too. And I wonder if we weren't in the world of COVID and if schedules were what they were, maybe between April and August, we might have gotten a standalone like Portland was a few months back too, or at least a UK takeover, which obviously there was supposed to be one. What was that, back in early April? Late April, yeah. Which obviously didn't happen either. That's been pushed back to October, and I would say that's still TBA as well, TBD, whether that happens. So, yeah, we'll see. I agree. I like slow build, but now that you've started and you've given us a match, don't make the rematch happen in August when it's May.
Well, there would just be a lot of TV that have to fill in and keep us hooked.
Right, and keep them busy doing something.
Yeah.
Well, let's flip over to the women's side. The NXT women's title match. Charlotte Flair, obviously the women's champion, and retained over Io Shirai by DQ, if my memory serves correct. And we saw the return of Rhea Ripley. You and I had talked last week about Rhea a little bit. So Rhea's back, whatever reason she wasn't around for a little bit there. And maybe it was just to, let this have some time to simmer. My original thought, if Rhea was going to be gone for a while, I didn't expect Charlotte to lose to Io Shirai right off the bat by any means. I think Shirai should get a run with the title at some point. She's very, very good in the ring. I figured they were going to build somebody, whether that would be Shirai or even Tegan Nox, Dakota Kai, somebody like that. Bianca would have been my initial pick, but she's hanging out, getting the smoke on Monday nights with the Street Profits with her husband. So not happening there. But what'd you think of the match, and what'd you think of Rhea coming back?
Yeah, I loved Rhea coming back. Great surprise there. I'm not a huge fan of how the ending of the match played out. I also didn't see Charlotte losing the title at all. And I recognize you have to keep Io Shirai strong. But it makes me kind of go, is Charlotte Flair, who she is by using a kendo stick to the midsection to cause a DQ? I think you could have ended up in the same place. And I think perhaps what we do is we have a little bit of a pivot here, and they kind of maybe foreshadowed it too, that now you got Io and Rhea, right? And maybe that's like a contenders match, even though Io technically deserves a shot at Charlotte again because of the bad finish. But if you have Io and Rhea do their thing, and then whoever comes out of that gets Charlotte again. And again, in this day and age, unfortunately, I feel like I've heard or read somewhere that, or maybe even a commentator said it at one point or another, like rematches are no longer guaranteed for title losers. So like in the past, if you lost your title, you were guaranteed a rematch. That doesn't exist, I think, in the current.
Usually the next night on Raw.
Yeah, the current WWE narrative in any form or fashion, that doesn't exist. So, so that's kind of the feeling I was left with. I'm totally good with Shirai and Rhea, but there's obviously legs for Io and Charlotte to do more, and then of course Rhea and Charlotte. Again, that was one of the better matches on WrestleMania. So give it to me again, please and thank you.
Yeah, totally agreed. And I was, again, to go back to that surprise method or surprise thing that we talked about earlier with Money in the Bank. Not knowing that Rhea was coming back that night, it was really cool. When she came out, and so that's part of the fun of wrestling is when you're surprised by things. So I thought that was really, really fun, and I agree. The kendo stick was kind of a callback maybe to the Charlotte Ronda, what was that, Survivor Series match a couple of years ago when Becky got her nose broke, and the man became the man at that point fully, but I don't know. The kendo stick shows up with Charlotte every once in a while, but not enough that it's like the sledgehammer for Triple H, where it's like her calling card. So it's almost kind of annoyingly showing up to me, we don't know what else to do, so let's have Charlotte use a random kendo stick, because Charlotte Flair's character definitely screams, martial arts. Yeah, that was a little bit weak. But
and to tie up my thought, because I don't know that I articulated it fully, Rhea could have come down and clocked Charlotte, and Io could have had a false finish that didn't happen, and then clock her again, and that's how the DQ happens. And I think you accomplish the same, and then there's more heat on the situation than there is now. Not that they didn't do a great job, because I think they did a fair job. I just think, again, I had the ability to have, be on the outside and look in.
Right.
That's what I would have preferred.
Yep. No, I like that thinking too. So keeping with our NXT titles, we don't necessarily have a whole lot to talk about with the tag titles, although there is a tag title match tonight between Imperium and I guess they're still the Broserweights, Matt Riddle and Timothy Thatcher. The
Broserweights 2.0.
Broserweights 2.0, that's right. The odd couple of NXT, as if Riddle and Dunn weren't enough of an odd couple. Someday when Dunn's able to come back, that'll be interesting. But another guy who isn't able to defend his title is Jordan Devlin. So they've been doing an interim cruiserweight title tournament. So we'll talk through the cruiserweight title situation. So I've got the standings, Tom. So they did this, what I would call round robin G1 style. They've got two groups, 4 guys in each, so a little smaller than the G1, but they're not making it last over the course of a month either. Well, actually they are pretty much dragging it out that long, but it's not the only thing happening. So 4 guys in each group, and the top guy from each group will then meet to become the interim cruiserweight champion. Eventually, you would think to face Jordan Devlin down the road. But first and foremost, before we get to the groups, I love that they're doing an interim title. WWE has traditionally never, I can't think of an interim champion off the top of my head. In the past, UFC does this all the time. They just did it this last weekend, in fact, with their lightweight division, because Khabib couldn't come in for the fight. So they had the top 2 contenders basically fight for the interim title. And the guy who Justin ends up winning, I can't pronounce his last name. So
Gaethje, right? Gaethje,
something like that. Yeah. Wins the title. And now, we don't get the Tony Ferguson Khabib match for the 947th time that I wanted to see it. Different podcast, different problem. So in this case, though, I love that they're doing the interim title. I think that solves a little bit of not letting your cruiserweight division just sit, because unfortunately, with the health situation, Jordan Devlin can't travel right now over here. Or even if he could, probably shouldn't. And Devlin's playing it up, big time online that this is a sham and all of that. I think some people were actually believing in that for a little bit, that Devlin was really ticked off about this. I'm sure he's not thrilled that he can't come wrestle, but guys, it's a work. He's a jerk of a bad guy. He's supposed to do that. And I guess it's working if it's getting people to talk about it and think he's really mad. So in Group A, we have Kushida at 2-0.
Can I pause you there? I know you see all of the standings in front of you. Try to recall your thinking back to when this was first announced. I'd love to hear, because we weren't doing this at the time. When you first saw the groups you said, okay, on paper, I see this happening. What was your take?
On paper, I had Kushida winning Group A, and not a lot of other choice to me in that group. Group B was a little strange in that I thought they would go one of 2 ways. They would either go with Isaiah Scott, who I think they need to get behind. I think the former Shane Strickland has a ton of potential, and they just haven't done a lot with him yet. Or I thought they might strap the rocket to El Hijo del Fantasma, with him coming straight in. It also seemed like I thought maybe he was going to be revealed to be the guy behind the kidnappings of Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wilde. He's involved in that storyline somehow, because those guys keep trying to come and get him, and he chases them off. So interesting to see where that goes. I like that there's little teasers to that still going on. I like whodunits in wrestling, so we'll see how it plays out. So that was what I thought was Kushida, and probably Kushida winning the title, because I think Kushida versus Devlin, if you can get to that anytime the next couple of months, would be really, really good to watch.
Yeah, I had Kushida and Scott as my 2, just for sharing that as well, and Kushida taking it all in the end. So,
and maybe Kushida's behind these kidnappings. I don't, who knows? But coincidentally, Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wilde had both wrestled Kushida directly before being kidnapped. Just saying. So be interesting to see where that goes. So the standings now, after everybody's wrestled 2 matches, so they all have 1 match left. Kushida is 2-0 in Group A. We have 2 guys tied at 1-1 in Group A, and Jake Atlas and Drake Maverick. And Tony Nese is 0-2 in that group. The matches that are left for that group are Kushida versus Drake Maverick, so 2-0 Kushida versus 1-1 Maverick, and Atlas versus Nese then, 1-1 Atlas, 0-2 Nese. So conceivably in that group, if Kushida beats Drake Maverick, he wins that group, hands down, doesn't matter what happens in the Atlas Nese match. If Drake Maverick beats Kushida, they both go to 2-1. Maverick would have the head-to-head win over Kushida, so he would actually win that unless Jake Atlas beats Tony Nese, in which case then all 3, Kushida, Atlas, and Maverick would be 2-1. Atlas would have the head-to-head win over Maverick. Maverick would have the head-to-head win over Kushida. Kushida would have the head-to-head win over Atlas. Then we get a 3-way.
Yeah, right. So that's they haven't gone that far yet to say this is how we'll determine that tiebreaker.
Yeah, they've just said head-to-head breaks ties. They haven't said what happens if you end up with a 3-way tie. I think there's a little piece of me, the way that they've played this Drake Maverick story, that thinks they could have Maverick win this thing. I think it would be a mistake. I like Drake Maverick, but I don't know. He's gotten that video that he released the day that he got released, for lack of a better use of word. I think you and I both reacted to on Facebook. It was heartbreaking. This guy clearly loves what he does. Has that bought him getting rehired? I don't know. Jake Atlas, I think, has a world of potential. Way too soon to put him there. And Tony Nese can't do anything because he's 0-2. So Kushida, Maverick, I think Kushida wins it still, but I think Drake probably gets a couple of really big hope spots. And maybe they even do the Atlas Nese match before that. Maybe Nese wins that match, so it takes Jake Atlas out of it and leaves us with Kushida and Maverick. Whoever wins moves on to the championship match.
Yeah, how they position all that will play into the drama or lack thereof. So yeah, I hope Kushida wins straight away. I would just say, just in response to last week, Wednesday, his win over Atlas was very sudden, which I thought was good to get over the submission, like out of nowhere. But I was hoping for maybe a little bit more. When I think Kushida Nese was fantastic. So, and I think we know Kushida has that ability. So, yeah, it would make sense for me. And I think it also, like, storyline wise, if Kushida is the one that gets to run the block and come out 3-0, if they do pivot and go with a different champion from Group B, if I have my group letter assigns correct, it would be interesting to say, hey, he walked through his group, but then he hit the wall. Not that I think that'll happen, but another way to tell a story.
Yep. So Group B then, we have Akira Tozawa at 2-0 in the division. And then much like Group A, we have two stars at 1-1 with Isaiah Swerve Scott and El Hijo del Fantasma at 1-1, and then Jack Gallagher sitting at 0-2. The matches left for that group are Tozawa versus Fantasma, so 2-0 against 1-1, and Scott versus Gallagher. Again there, if Tozawa wins that match, he goes 3-0, moves on, no questions asked. If he were to lose that match to Fantasma, that would give he and Fantasma each the 2-1, and they would be tied, and Fantasma would have that head-to-head win, so he would go into the finals. Swerve Scott can still get into that conversation as well, because if he beats Gallagher, he's 2-1, and he has the win over Fantasma. So we kind of have the same situation here that we had in Group A, where one can win it straight away, and a couple other ways things can get screwy. The only hope for Scott at this point would be for him to win his match and have Fantasma beat Tozawa, thus setting up that three-way, which kind of goes a different way than you and I both thought, because we thought Scott was going to probably win that division. He now needs some help because of his first loss in the whole tournament to Tozawa, which maybe brings us to a conversation that you wanted to talk about, Tom, which is the tale of two Tozawas.
Yeah. I'm going to, before I jump into that pool and swim in those waters, I will just say, I think, and again, if they don't clarify that, tiebreakers head to head is the only tiebreaker that they're doing, and we don't end up getting a 3-way, I do see Scott ending up winning this group in the end. I do think Phantasma gets the next W for him, and Scott gets the next W for him. And the way that it shakes out, the order would be Scott first, based on tiebreakers. Phantasma second, I think, and then Tozawa third.
Phantasma beats.
Yeah. Oh no. Phantasma lost to Scott. Phantasma beat Gallagher.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that, again, we'll see. Obviously, that
right.
and again, they could throw a wrinkle in it by saying we're going to do a 3-way. And again, would I argue with a Scott Tozawa Phantasma 3-way? Not at all. But do you need to give us one more week of extending this tournament? The other question is too. Again, if we knew that Takeover was 3 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, I could see that being a natural finale for the conclusion of this tournament. So I'll stop there. We can revisit that too. But the Tale of Two Tozawas for me is just one of those things where he's looked fantastic, just fantastic on NXT, and he had his own thing on Raw before this thing started. But then he came out of the gate and had that killer match with Scott, and he just looked amazing, just completely Superman on NXT from being Clark Kent on Monday Night Raw, and just completely polar opposites. And then I think it was the next Monday he was back, and I'm pretty sure, if I have my chronology correct, he lost to Jinder Mahal in Mahal's return. It's or maybe it was someone else. Maybe it was one of the trio of Andrade, Theory, or Angel Garza. Regardless of that, the fact that he's not been exempt from having to be on Raw during this, if they were doing other people, right, then I could understand it a little bit, but they're not. He's the only one. So they haven't protected him the way that they should. And then fast forward, his match with Jack Gallagher, again, amazing. Just absolutely some of the when those matches have been on, they've arguably been the best match on NXT that night. So gosh, and again, I've loved Tozawa back since he was doing his his excursion in the United States. What was it 2008, 2009? And he really rose to a lot of popularity with some PWG matches. Again, one of my all-time favorites, Chris Hero in there too. And then Dragon Gate USA and Evolve. So yeah, I mean, golly, what again, what a tale of two Tozawas. The guy you get on NXT and the guy you get on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, I can't argue with you. I was just looking up Tozawa for you. For whatever reason, Pro Fight Database, the Internet Wrestling Database, doesn't. Oh, there's NXT. Okay, that I wasn't finding NXT. Yeah, so since the tournament started is just what I was looking at here. So the tournament, that match that he had with Scott, with Isaiah Scott, was back. Oh, where was that match? It's been a little while anyways. I don't see it on the list here. Why would, that would make things, oh, there it is. April 15th he beat Isaiah Swerve Scott on April 15th. And since that point, on his WWE journey, on the Raw journey, he has lost to Andrade, Bobby Lashley, Jinder Mahal, and Angel Garza. Why? I agree with you. When you've got all these other guys who are facing the Leo Rushes, the Denzel Desjardins, even Shane Thorne and Brendan Vink before they started kind of getting a little something going on, you have options, it seems like. For God's sake, bring Kona Reeves over to Raw and job him out, because you're not doing anything with him in NXT, nor frankly should you be. And I don't want to turn this into a Kona Reeves discussion because everybody will tune out. But sorry, you can tell I'm not a fan. But you've got Kona Reeves. You've got other guys down at NXT who you could bring up, who are probably living in the Orlando area because they're training at the PC. Have them lose. Yeah, don't do that to Tozawa when you've got him looking great on NXT. And I agree with you. I'm right there. Tozawa, I've loved the guy since the Dragon Gate days. He was one of the guys who I felt got over best in the US. He seems like a funny guy. he's really good friends, I think, offline. We've seen on Twitter and that he's really good friends with guys like Ricochet and Apollo Crews. So apparently, if you're in that friend group, you just get used really poorly. Not really sure what it is. Maybe they rub people wrong. I don't know. There's something. But dang, he's looked great. I agree with you in that tournament. And then you have people tuned to Raw. And as much as they want to say NXT is a third brand and it's all equal and blah, 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 Raw is the flagship. We all know that. And if you look like crap on Raw, then, you're good enough on NXT. And by default, my concern is too, does that make the other guys look weaker? Because here's this guy who can't win anything on Raw, but he's beaten guys on NXT. So obviously the NXT guys aren't worth anything, because if they can't even beat Akira Tozawa, who's getting beat by everybody and their mother on Raw, I think they don't think about that stuff. I think they don't think fans pay attention to it. And while there's a segment of the fans who sure don't, and there's a segment of the fans on Raw who don't watch NXT, or a segment of NXT that don't watch Raw, there's a lot of us that cross over. It's mind-blowing to me. I agree with you. You can tell the difference where Triple H has the final verdict versus Vince McMahon has the final verdict. And they don't seem to talk, or one doesn't seem to care what the other thinks, and I'll let everybody decide who that is.
Yeah. Indirect evaluation doesn't do anyone any good. And if you're one of the only live forms of entertainment that people are getting, and you're becoming perhaps a destination for people that you might not have otherwise been, why would you insult their intelligence for those that are paying attention out of the gate? And I'm hypothesizing there, but to your point too, there will be people who do pay attention. You and I both. Not that
Right.
we're the only segment of the population, but there's got to be others out there like us.
You would think so. There should be, anyways. Really, I mean, there should be. Well, it'll be interesting to see. I don't remember seeing any title tournament matches announced for tonight. I'm sure there will be. They certainly don't announce every card ahead of time, nor should they. But be interesting to see what matches play out tonight and how that affects things moving forward. I can say, looking at those matches that are left, Kushida Maverick, I think just storyline in that will be really, really good. And Maverick's fine in the ring. There's nothing wrong with the guy. I think he probably needs, and this is a terrible time to do it, but probably needs to go just work on character stuff and become something again before they can do much with him, because of the way they've devalued him as a character along the way. Atlas Nice should be very, very good. I have a lot of hope for Jake Atlas down the road. I think he's got a lot of potential. Tozawa Phantasma, thank you, please. Let's do that. And Scott Gallagher should be really good as well. Gallagher, another guy. I like that they've done a little character change with him, but hey, you make him go 0-2 and probably 0-3. What have you done for him except give him some? He got some tattoos.
Well, and here's just one thing I'll just post out there, and we can parking lot it for now, and maybe we'll come back around to it in a couple weeks. I know they've been doing kind of the matches that made me type presentation on 205 Live, because they've paused live matches while this tournament's going on. I'd love to see the action that we're seeing on NXT transition to 205 Live. Nothing against what's been going on, but I'm less concerned about tag matches on 205 Live, which is, we were getting a fair smattering of those. Give me shorter, more impactful 10 to 15 minute, 12 to 15 minute matches like what we're getting on NXT as this tournament goes on 205 Live when that resumes at some point, to build this division, to deepen it, to strengthen it, to expose us to guys that are in the system that we know. Why not give them the platform?
Yep, totally agreed. And I think I read somewhere that they were taping 205 this week, so maybe we're going to get back to matches. Some of the matches they've picked both on that and on the UK NXT throwback episodes kind of that they've done have been interesting picks. Did you ever think you would see the Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan on 205 Live? It was there. But Mastiff picked, over on the UK side, picked Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask one week. It's like a 6-minute match from Madison Square Garden, but it was really fun to go back and watch. Something I hadn't seen before. Yeah, it was fun. I agree. 205 Live is, good Lord, just, you've got the talent. Do the thing you can do with that division. Every time it seems like they're going to, they, branch off into something else and forget focus. So I don't know. We'll see. Well, let's close out this week. And here we're pushing up on an hour, and I said we go shorter. We'll see how we're due. But close up with some AEW talk. They've got Double or Nothing coming up in a little over a week, about a week and a half. We'll do probably a more in-depth preview next week for Double or Nothing, especially after tonight, after they hopefully add some more things to it and flesh out some more things for Double or Nothing. But let's start with right at the top of the card. They set up Jon Moxley and Brody Lee for Double or Nothing. We can talk more preview of that match next week, but interested kind of, Tom, in your thoughts on the setup that they did for that match, as well as any thoughts you might have on the Dark Order, who, debuted back at Double or Nothing a year ago with Stu Grayson and Evil Uno, and have had an interesting journey to get to this point with Brody Lee.
Yeah, I liked what I saw to set this up last week, Wednesday. I think it's a little early. And again, I don't know if this might have been the original intent or if they're pivoting because of the time that we're in. I can't see. It's like I guess I'm gonna go back and say that the whole empty arena match between Moxley and Hager that happened a few weeks back, like it fit in the time and it made sense. But do you want Jake Hager taking his first loss like that? So then my question here becomes: are we setting ourselves up? Is AEW setting themselves up for an inconclusive finish, perhaps, or do you already pivot and give Brody Lee the title? Because again, that would be, he's the bad guy, and it's better to have good guys chasing bad guys for the titles when money's at stake, I guess, or when you're trying to get fans to pay. So I really don't know. I guess I have a little bit of a mixed feeling about the match. I will, in full disclosure, I'm really heavily thinking I'm going to probably buy this pay-per-view, which would be the first AEW pay-per-view that I would purchase. Again, crazy times call for crazy measures. Nothing against AEW, but again, on that Saturday night, I could be craving some of these matches that are going to be forthcoming. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you. So the Dark Order has had an interesting journey. Of course, they debuted, like I said, with Grayson and Uno. I loved it. I liked the Super Smash Brothers back in the day. The little bits I would see of them in PWG and even ROH when they'd bring them in. ROH never really ran with them big time, but I think they're a good tag team, Grayson and Uno. I think they had some really cheesy missteps with the Dark Order for a while there. I think they tried to put them at the top of the card a little too quick, especially with no leader per se outside of Uno. I was thrilled when Matt Hardy was not revealed to be the leader of the Dark Order, because I thought they were throwing so many red herrings out there that it was him, that I was hoping they were red herrings, and they were pivoting, and it seemed like Lee was the most likely. Right at that same time, you kind of had Matt Hardy, Lance Archer, and Brody Lee all coming in. Hardy to me would have been, and we'll talk about Hardy in a little bit here, but Hardy to me would have been, too obvious, and the broken Dark Order thing, again, I said last week, I don't get the broken thing. So I was hoping it wasn't that. Lance Archer to me wouldn't have made any sense. His character doesn't fit in that. And Brody Lee, his character before didn't necessarily fit into this. But I was okay with that. He did have a darker side to him because he was in the Wyatt family in WWE and all of that. I like that they changed. I don't love his new gear, but I like that they've changed him from the wife beater and jeans. I think it's good to take a pivot on that. I think they can work on that a little bit. I think the robe's really cool looking. I think the singlet looks a little WWE Create a Wrestler video game. Just my opinion. I like Lee and Moxley. I think they can have a really good match. I think they had a match on WWE for the Intercontinental title a while back, years ago now. I like both Moxley and Lee. I like that Lee is getting a chance to talk. I think he's funny. I do hope they eventually move a little bit away from the Dark Order as a parody of WWE and Vince McMahon. It's funny, haha, every once in a while, but if that's every week, which they seem to last week move away from that. I did think it was interesting last week, and this is a pivot off of Brody Lee a little bit, but 10, this new recruit, Preston Vance is the guy's name as a wrestler. He's wrestled on Dark a couple of times, and now he's wrestling as 10. on there. They made him, to me, in the vignette 2 or 3 weeks ago, look to be this huge powerhouse guy. I think the one thing Brody Lee does, you really have to be a big guy to look big next to Brody Lee, and Preston Vance is not. He made 10 look tiny when he was standing by him. And I just think it'll be interesting. I have not seen Dark from last night. To be honest, I haven't made a huge point to watch Dark most weeks because most of the time it's just stuff that hasn't interested me. I do hope to watch it here in the next couple of days because there is some stuff on there that I'm interested. I think Havoc and Luther could be interesting to watch anyways. And 10 has a match on there, so I'm interested to see how they portray him.
They called it like a dark super show, if I'm not mistaken, which piqued my interest.
It's going to be a double dark as well. I think, and without seeing it, I don't know. I think a lot of the stuff last night was stuff they had taped in Georgia back when they did tapings for 4 or 5 weeks. And then they didn't end up needing to use it quite as long. So I think they had some filler stuff that they could throw on Dark. I think maybe they taped all of this at Daly's last week. I haven't seen it to know. If they did, man, that makes for a long night, a 2-hour live show and then a hour and a half or 2-hour Dark taping as well. So I think they were burning off some old stuff, which is fine. I'm glad they're putting it out there. If that's what they did, the guys and gals work those matches, get them out there, let people see them. So all said, without wanting to get too far into the match, I agree with you. My one concern is too soon to go to Moxley Lee. This is really Brody Lee's first feud, I guess. He had a little bit of interaction with SCU when he first came in, and I think that had legs and could have gone for a little bit. Certainly could have resulted in a Brody Lee, Stu Grayson, Evil Uno versus SCU match at Double or Nothing. Obviously, we're not going that direction. I think you could have done that, had Lee get the pinfall, keep building him. But I think it'll be a good match when it happens. We'll talk more about that next week. It'll be interesting to see.
The setup tonight and then leading into the final setup next week will tell the story. And again, they've got time.
Right. They do. And Brody Lee has the title belt apparently in his possession. They made a point to say that last week, and I did see a tweet where he tweeted out a picture of it and said 9/10. So possession being the law. Talking about another one of the guys that we have talked about is Lance Archer. They teamed him up with Jake Roberts, obviously, when he came in a little over a month ago, maybe 2 months ago now. Jake Roberts as his mouthpiece. There's some people saying maybe Roberts shouldn't be working these shows right now because, of his age and that sort of thing. And he definitely, I know he was posting some tweets that, he was really struggling there for a little bit. Look, Jake Roberts is one of the best promos in the history of wrestling, in my eyes. I love Jake Roberts promos. He's one of those guys who can talk you into wanting to see what's going on. So I think teaming him with Archer was great. Archer's not known for being a great promo guy. He'll scream, everybody dies, things like that. But so I think putting him with Archer was really a good idea. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Here I go with my stables again. I wouldn't mind seeing, the snake pit become a thing or something, and there be other guys added to that. But I've really liked it. I am a little surprised that Lance Archer that they did the TNT title tournament and put Cody and Lance into the finals of that. Again, not to get too far into the preview for next week, only because I don't think it needed the title to be a match on Double or Nothing. I think they could have done something else with the TNT title, but that's maybe a story for next week. Obviously, Jake Roberts talking about Cody being Caesar and Archer coming for him. I've loved this tandem. I've really enjoyed Archer. Looks like a killer every time he comes out right now. What have you thought of Archer and Roberts so far?
Yeah, it was weird when they were separate in the vignettes that were going on, only because, again, like, you're getting the authentic feel when they're together. And I think the angle that happened last Wednesday with Brandy getting DDT'd, I think it was Britt Baker, which is another kind of side, but I won't go there. Just, it was interesting that was the interaction that led to her being laid out. But then Jake getting the snake and putting it on Brandy and kind of laying over her. You definitely, obviously, you want now. I mean, whether if you're following the babyface, you want now Cody to get revenge more than just the fact that, like, going after Archer for a title makes sense, because obviously Cody can't challenge for the AEW World Title. So there's a lot of meaning now, but now it's personal. So that's really interesting. I thought that was one of the stronger things that I took away from watching Dynamite last week. And again, I've loved how they've built Archer. Again, he was beating up a lot of smaller guys first, but then the tournament, Cabana and then Dustin, and then obviously leading up to Cody. And he was calling out Cody from the start, if I'm not mistaken. So, like I said, to your point too, does the TNT title have to be in the center of this? No, the issue could be easily justifiable. Like they could have done the angle they did on Wednesday with the Snake and Brandy and gotten us this match, and now the title almost seems like a backdrop in a way.
Right. Yeah, I agree, and that's, we can probably delve more into that next week. But yeah, the Snake angle, although Snake was much smaller than the Snakes normally Jake has brought to the ring, I thought that was interesting. And I don't know if you caught it right at the end of the segment when Jake's getting ready to leave the ring, he steps on the tail of the Snake.
I did not see that.
Like, you don't see it on camera, but you see like the Snake kind of straighten up as Jake, and then Jake kind of moves real quick, and the Snake, I was like, oh God, he stepped on the freaking Snake. Like, maybe it shouldn't have been a bigger snake. Older guy needs a smaller snake. Him laying over Brandy was all sorts of strange and creepy, and that's exactly what they were going for, so it worked. Uncomfortable, maybe, is a good word. But Brandy's the chief brand officer of that company, shoot style off camera. So if Brandy Rhodes didn't want to do that angle, Brandy Rhodes wouldn't have had to do that angle. So, she was okay with it. It definitely got creepy, and I agree with you. Who'd have thought, back in the Stardust days, that maybe one of the best, if not close to the best babyface right now in the business would be Cody Rhodes. Kudos to that guy. I know, think what you will of him as a business person. I know there's a lot of people that have, thought differently. He's bet on himself, and he's been right so far. He's, like I said, probably one of the most over and best baby faces in pro wrestling at this point. I think he's definitely more over than any baby face on Raw or SmackDown right now. If you want to count the Fiend as a baby face, maybe different, but who knows what the Fiend is. So there's that. So we'll talk more about Cody and Lance next week, though, in our preview. The last topic for today, the crazy street fight, I called it, between Omega and Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. That thing went all over the place. It involved a golf cart, near vehicular homicide. Matt Hardy changed outfits at least twice, I think, and ended up as Damascus, the broken version coming out of the ice chest, which was somebody I read online said Kenny Omega said, "Here, I'll bring DDT to AEW." I don't know that it quite went that far, although maybe a little bit. But again, a little more cinematic. It wasn't a cinematic presentation, but they were definitely doing some different things, I think. I thought it was a fun match. I really did. I'm not the biggest Matt Hardy fan in the world anymore. I used to love the Hardy Boys back in the day, but I think Matt's lost an awful lot. But I thought he looked good here. Kenny Omega is Kenny Omega. There's nothing wrong with that guy in the ring. Chris Jericho, again, maybe the best heel right now in the business, short of Baron Corbin making everybody hate him. And Sammy Guevara's got a lot of potential too. So I thought they had a really fun match to end that show. And I got to say, the ending of the show with the Inner Circle, with the Jacksonville Jaguars field behind them, all giving the finger, I thought that was a pretty cool image to end the show on.
Yeah, I agree. A couple takeaways for me, and I didn't read anything about this because I literally just finished watching this episode, spoiler free, right before we recorded. It seemed like there were a lot of people that were not necessarily wrestlers or talent in the crowd. So, I mean, is this the first indirect show with fans? I mean, and some people wearing masks. So, just hypothetical question, not that it necessarily requires an answer. I just thought it interesting observation. You noticed them more as they went into the stands and then out of dailies and into the Jacksonville Stadium. I was surprised by Kenny Omega's pinfall in a way, but at the same time not, because they couldn't have pinned. It wouldn't have made more sense to pin Matt Hardy. And it took pretty much a gang mauling from the Inner Circle to do that. So I'll be interested to see if that leads to Inner Circle in some form, maybe Proud and Powerful challenging for the tag titles, or some sort of singles match with Omega, either tonight or at the pay-per-view. But yeah, fun match, cool stunts. Again, the golf cart and the perceived or unintended vehicular potential manslaughter homicide that was afoot. And then again, Inner Circle, I think they walk the line of being too much sometimes, but at the end, like being like jerks and with the big middle finger in the backdrop, that was a nice close to that show to basically say, we are the big dogs on this block. So you've got Matt Hardy, who probably faces off with Jericho, and again, not to get too deep into what we might think might happen at Double or Nothing, because we'll spend a lot more time next week. But yeah, I love Daly's place. I loved seeing actual matches in fresh air, and with a moderate blue sky as the sun was setting. So that was fun.
Yeah, and Daly's a great venue. I think it's looked really good every time they've used it, when they had a crowd and when they didn't. I think most of those folks were crew. To the best of my knowledge, they didn't have any ticket paying fans or comped fans, but it might have been friends of folks too. There were definitely more people on screen last week in AEW than even they've had in the past. So it'll be interesting to see. I think tonight's going to be interesting. Do we go to Hardy Jericho for Double or Nothing? Seems to be where they might head. What does Omega do? Adam Page hasn't been around. Now, granted, I don't think he was at the shows that they taped in Georgia. And last week was the first live night. And if they weren't going to do anything with him, then probably no need to bring him in, or I don't know where Adam Page lives. But, is Page going to be around for Double or Nothing? I'd assume so. But I guess I don't know that either. If there's some reason he's staying away, I don't know anything about Page's outside of wrestling life. So whether that's a thing or not. I know I saw something that he was on Being the Elite this week. I have not watched Being the Elite. I don't tend to watch that on a regular basis. So I did see he had something there. So he's still around, obviously. Be interesting to see, though, what happens there and where they set up. Because as of right now, none of the Inner Circle have a match officially booked for Double or Nothing. I expect that to change tonight. I think, like you said, Proud and Powerful going against Omega and Page. That could be fun. Be interesting to see what they set up without getting too deep into that. Tom, anything else you want to hit on before we kind of just give a quick shout to next week? Or
yeah, no, I mean, I'm just grateful that NXT was live again, or if it wasn't live, it appeared live, and the surprises we got there, and then AEW as well. Again, I think both shows were very solid, and it was fun to get back to those. Again, like I said, in this house, we're big Survivor fans, so the Survivor finale is tonight. So unfortunately for this week and probably the last week for a while, both of these shows will get DVR'd. So again, I'll have to do my best to stay off social media before I can get to both NXT and AEW. But it worked last week. So here's going for 2 in a row.
Here's hoping. Talking about next week, we are going to record again next week. Next week, we're going to look at the Double or Nothing preview we've been talking about. News today around the Intercontinental title. We're going to wait and talk about that next week when we have a little bit more around it, and the Raw Women's title again, and things moving along in that and more. Who knows what will happen in the next 6 or 7 days.
Yeah, and actually one thing I just thought of, and actually it was on my mind earlier and has come in and out, the Undertaker docu-series on network. Again, I don't know if you've been watching The Last Dance with Michael Jordan on ESPN. I've been hooked on that. I've got my wife hooked, whether she's fully engaged or not. She's at least pretending that she is. But it's been a lot of fun to watch that. And I had not yet had the chance to watch first episode of Undertaker's docuseries, and I know the next one's coming out this Sunday. So I'd love to add that to the next week too. If you are watching it, or if you can try to fit that in, I would love to. And maybe not next week. Maybe we pause on that. But just I don't want to throw that out there. That's in the wrestling hemisphere right now. So
yeah, something we can look at in the future. I have seen the first episode. Very, very good. The Last Dance, I've only seen the first episode. The rest of them are all recorded, ready to roll. Unlike you, I don't think I could get Katie to be very interested in either of those things. But I was a huge Bulls fan growing up in Illinois in the early 90s. So yeah, that just watching the first one, I'm really looking forward to the other episodes of The Last Dance as well. And I think there are some parallels maybe between The Last Dance and The Last Ride in that they're really interesting documentaries so far. Yeah, Undertaker definitely worth checking out. Shout out to our friend Blake Wilson, who I'm sure is watching it because he's hoping it really is the end of the Undertaker. And if Blake, if you're watching this, I think you're probably wrong. It's probably not, but that's just my feeling. I will now get a middle finger picture from Blake, I'm sure. So, Tom, anything else you want to share before we sign off and end this podcast?
No, I'm good for today. We're just under where we were last week. So if we can quickly talk and say our farewells, we'll meet our goal of being shorter than the week prior, and we'll just get better from this point forward. So no, just appreciate you. Continued health and wellness to those out and around, and stay safe, stay healthy. Watch a lot of wrestling, and please leave us a comment or shoot us a message. We did realize whether we need to get back into it or not. There is a 2-Spot Monkeys Facebook or Facebook, yes, but also Twitter. So we'd love to engage with you beyond just where this lives and where we post it, but there as well. So thanks everybody, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything Tom said, guys, stay safe. Yeah, leave us comments, give us feedback. We got some last week. It was fun. Tom, no Tigers hat this week, so we don't have the Wizard of Oz theme that Annette brought up last week. Oh, is it a Tigers?
No.
Got Jordan going on there. Yep. So it's a Chicago theme this week for 2-Spot Monkeys. So we'll sign off here, and we will see you all next week when we come back. Have a great week and stay safe, everybody.